Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Attic Static podcast. So we're here to answer questions, to give information, talk about cool stuff. If you have any questions, we're probably not taking calls today, but just so you know, the phone number is 386-956-0754. Or you can go to the atticstaticpod.com website or Attic Static Podcast on YouTube. So today we are here. I'm Ray.
I'm Gary.
And I'm Johnny.
Adam's not here today. He's climbing a mountain in Idaho. Ed is not here. He's got a family obligation. We are going to go on without him. I think today's one of the first times we're doing it without all of our partners here. So Gary's going to start us off with a icebreaker. What do you got, Gary?
It's kind of hard to talk about ice breaking when we're having record heats and stuff. But, I was going to bring up this today. Like I was 19, just to show how old we are on this table here. 1987, I ran under 5 minutes for a mile.
So that was the first time you ran under 5 minutes.
I was building up to it. 37 years later, today, I did it for the 37th year in a row at the Fifth Avenue Mile in New York.
That's amazing.
For me, I just feel like if I can do it, it can't be that hard. But I guess also I think
So how hard is it?
it's not easy. That's the best I can say. It doesn't get any easier. I think the last 5 or 6 years, I've barely gotten under like 2 or 3 seconds every year.
But you run every day or almost every day, and you have to like train to do this, to continue to be able to do this as you get older. Do you have to train harder and harder to do this, or do you just go do it?
You have to train smarter.
Meaning
And
what?
the best way I can explain this is, because I've thought about this before, like when you're younger, you can do a lot of the wrong things and still run well. Like maybe you're going to run bad, but it's not as big. And it's like a dartboard. Like when you're younger, you just take a dart and you're going to hit the dartboard, you run well. As you get older, you got to get very close to that bullseye if you want to run well. So it's not as easy. You can still do it. It's just you have to have a lot of things go better. You can't do anything wrong. You can't have multiple days of sleeping poorly or do too much running going into or do anything that's going to make it that much harder. So it does get harder, but it's not impossible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here yet.
So I think there was a time, probably in the 90s, where it was at work, and I don't know if it was Way or somebody in her group, they bet this kid, I'll call him a kid at the time, he was probably in his early 20s.
I remember you telling me this story.
I told you this, right? For some reason, it was like they were training for a marathon, and he was like, oh, I could probably run a 5-minute mile, right? So everybody said, no, you can't do it, because he was, he drank, smoked, didn't exercise. So we all went over to the high school track at lunch one day from work, and he ran around the track. He did it, right? Because he was 20, whatever. And I'm trying to remember if it was 5, could have been 6. I don't remember. But whatever it was, he practically fell over and had a heart attack when he was done. But when you're that age, you could actually just push through it almost and get there, right?
You can push through a lot more things when you're younger, but if it was really 5 minutes, and you may be thinking
it could have been 6. Could have been 6.
You still have to be pretty good. There's not many people. I mean, there's a lot of kids in high school who try to break 5 and can't.
So it's probably 6. Right.
Yeah. But which is either still way, hard. It's just not as hard. It's a minute easier.
But if he was 10 years older, he would have never done it, right? Or it's harder to push through.
Yeah. So what was your training regimen for this? How did you eat? Give me a week up until this date.
What did you do different? What do you do different than your normal to do this? Maybe that's what I would want.
Different now than like 20 years ago, or different
No, in general, because you were anticipating.
You knew this race was today. Did you do anything different for the past couple of weeks?
Well, this week I didn't run as much. I cut back, which is another thing I'm not really good at doing. I'm used to still just, I'm always training for the next race. And like, well, you can't do that anymore. Like if I want to run well at this race, I got to be prepared for this race. So I didn't run as much. I didn't run 2 days this week, which is a lot for me. And most of my days were only like 5 or 6 miles, which for me is not.
What was your calorie intake?
I don't know. I don't change that.
So no diet change, no nothing.
I tried my best not to eat as much chocolate last night, but I'm not very good at that either.
So
how much chocolate did you eat?
I don't know, probably like a lot of Oreos.
Really?
Too many. I got those big sleeves. It's better when you can buy the packs of 6. So like, you only eat 6. But then I get this pack and it's like, well, they had these things. It's like 13. I'm like, I'll just eat half. But I'm very bad at stopping.
We had one. Someone had them in Florida. They were like, and they weren't the double ones. They were like monster ones. I don't know. They're just enormous. I don't know. They were horrible, but they were really good.
We just had the opposite. We had the thins.
Oh yeah, they're like wafers.
Yeah,
right?
but I liked it. It was enough. I ate the whole pack, but it was better.
The cookies are the best part.
I felt better about myself than eating the regular ones.
Well, so Gary, you're the one who always talks about discipline, and you're telling us you couldn't not eat chocolate the night before the most
All right.
important race. Like,
I mean,
what's
to
up
be
with
honest,
that?
I only had 3. I did cut down to 3, but it was really hard to stop.
So that's it? Like you just eat your regular diet, you only cut back a little bit, and you were able to
I didn't
this.
do as much of my training this week was a little bit different. I mean, normally I would do a long, hard workout. I did a easier workout. So I changed it.
So you basically rested for the race. That's
Yeah.
that's the big difference. Is resting.
I mean, I had to prepare for it going into it, but yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
I'm good with
Then
that.
Then the next week I have a 12K, so it's a little bit different. Add another 6.5 miles to that.
Got it. All right, cool. Johnny, any races today?
Nope. Race to go see a new member of the family, a little baby that was the most cutest little thing. She's 5 pounds, 6 pounds, something like that, like tiny, like this big.
Is this like the 3rd baby in your family in the last month?
And then in December the 4th one comes. So we're in heaven as a family.
All right.
That is cool. All right, very cool. The other thing that I wanted to say is that this coming Sunday, Johnny and Jen and myself and Wei and Wei's brother and his wife are getting on a plane to Portugal. So, not that'll be a discussion for the future about what we're going to do there. So we're going to spend a couple days on the mainland and then most of the time on the Azores, which is supposed to be like the Hawaii of Europe, I guess, or the Atlantic. So that should be awesome. So hopefully we'll have lots of good stories to talk about for that. So we may not be here next weekend. We're going to be short a bunch of members. So we might pre-record some shows or we'll do something else. But over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some. We may not have the live stream every week. So more to come on Portugal when we get back. And anybody have anything else they want to talk about before we get into the regular conversation? No? All right. So we brought up a couple of weeks ago, I think, that we just wound up with a Tesla in our driveway. So we're now finding out that there's things you have to figure out when you buy an EV car, right? So one is how do you charge the car, and another one is do you have to worry about maintenance and repairs and things like that, and the tires are a little bit different as well. So because we have Johnny, we're going to talk about all this stuff today. So Johnny, first things first, charging, right? So I did some homework on this a couple of years ago for the place we live. We have a house in the Poconos, and we were talking about doing charging there. So there are different levels of chargers you can buy. Level 1, which is basically plugging it into your electrical outlet in your house, and it'll charge you about 3 miles per hour. So very slow when you're trying to charge 200 miles on a car. Level 2 charger you can buy, which will give you anywhere from 30 to 50 miles per hour of charging. And those cost, if you buy them yourself, you can buy them for a few $100 at the store, at Home Depot, or you're online. And then you have to have them installed either by an electrician or a friend of yours that's like an electrician, like Johnny. Or there's fast chargers that you can go plug into at the mall and whatever, and charge even faster. So our dilemma is, what do we put at our house, if anything, right? So right now we're charging on the level 1, just plugging it into the wall, and it takes forever to charge. Now, if you're not going anywhere, right? If you're just driving around town back and forth, charge it 10 or 20 miles every night, it's fine. Like, you don't need it. But as soon as you want to go far, right, you need to figure this out. So do you want to start there, or do you want me to go further?
No, I mean, I think something very interesting is also be careful how you drive your car. So if you're heavy-footed, then obviously you're going to drain this car much quicker than most people. So if you're dashing around town and you're trying to fit into traffic and stuff like that, it almost forces you to drive a different way than if you would nice and slow on the highway or getting to speed without forcing your foot to put the car in different situations. But to Ray's point, a lot of people don't realize that in your house, you have 220 volt that comes from the pole. But when you're plugging in a normal domestic appliance, that's using 110, which is half of what's available at your pole, right? And usually most people won't, run into a 220 volt circuit unless they're working on their air conditioning, if they have a electric dryer,
Yeah.
electric oven, electric stovetop, and those use 220.
And just to say, when you see those, like, it's always a different plug.
Yes.
Right? You're going to it's not going to be the normal.
It's a very large plug, usually with the prongs obviously more separated. And if anyone owned an RV, very similar to an RV plug, right? And those are usually around, you jump into the 50 amp range, and then the next one jumps up to about 80, and it's very obvious. It's a big clunky thing. You put it in, and you usually have to really it in, so it's not like a regular 110 plug. But the cost that Ray is referring to is that someone has to go to your house, open up your breaker panel, and start to wire all these units in. But some of the inefficiencies that people start to realize is that you're converting from one type of voltage to another. So AC, alternating current, is what you get from your pole. But all the EVs are actually operating very similar to solar. It's a DC. So when you see the superchargers on the side of the road, they're actually pure DC units for a certain extent on what you're pushing into your car. And the cars and the plugs are all associated to do that, and it's smart. It's automatic switching, and it knows what's happening. And I think you guys could say, probably already know, Tesla supercharger will do 80% in what time?
15 minutes or 20
really
minutes.
fast.
Yeah,
So,
really fast.
But
you're gonna pay. You're paying.
I
for
double
that.
checked
Yeah.
because obviously I have access to things at wholesale and things. It's between $30,000 and $40,000 for one of those.
Yeah.
So
those are off the table.
I was gonna give you guys one as a present, but we'll take a picture of one and sort of put it on your wall or something. But so you realize to get the level of efficiency that some people refer to takes a good chunk of money.
But let's be clear that the use of that at your house is there
You don't
is
need
none.
it.
Why would you need to come home, charge in 15 minutes, and turn around and go again? Right? Like that's just not a thing, right?
I disagree.
Why?
I just disagree. I'm
That means you went 300 miles and got back to your house, and you need to charge it up and go another 200 miles.
just like I've done many a times, right? I've come
I don't
all
believe
the
it.
way from work.
All the way from wait. Work is 1 mile.
Went to what? Well,
far.
Work is 1
let me
mile.
finish. Let me finish. These EV people get all touchy. Let me finish. So I went to Waterbury, Connecticut, right? Drove my car all the way over there the other day in a storm, had to go through George Washington Bridge traffic, stuck in traffic, did all the stuff. And I get there, right? I get home. It's not an
Wait, so you
uncommon
went
thing.
there and back, is you're
Yes,
saying?
it's not an uncommon thing that if I went there and I installed something, I did a big upgrade to them, and I'll get a phone call and say, hey, John, this thing worked for 3 hours, and now the storm came through. Now nothing works anymore. Refrigeration's out. Let's just take a million different things. I'm someone who, I don't care. This is my job. I'll go and I'll drive back the 2 hours and go solve
So you
the
came
problem.
home and then turned around and had to go back.
Let's say I did. Is that a true scenario?
So
If I had a supercharger in my house, I'd go get me
But how
something to
often
eat.
is
Okay,
something
but
like
are you-
that?
Supercharge.
We're talking about like
Right.
once a year, maybe.
Doesn't matter. He asked, what's the scenario? It's a scenario. And then my generation was raised on convenience. So if I'm going to do something in my life that's changing my life, who's taking 30, 40, 50, $60,000 of hard-earned work, sweat, tears, I want convenience. I'm being completely honest. So especially when someone tells me at a 110, I'm getting what was it?
Three.
3 miles for an hour. I'm the most impatient person. I'd be sitting there like, what the heck?
Yeah.
There's got to be something wrong with
No,
this
it's-
thing. So the point is that I believe that if enough people set the expectation that it's normal, technology will make it available.
They will, and the
Right?
price will
So-
come down.
But if everyone becomes complacent, say, well, that's just the way life is. I'll just sit here at the mall. I'd rather do it there than home. You create all these weird scenarios that you see now, right? People reading books at the Wawa, people reading books at they're sitting in their car, right? It's very unproductive in my mind. But the point is that when you understand the technology, you start to realize why it's so inefficient. So the other problem is that when you have I don't know, how would you say it? So if you don't have connections, we would talk about the average of what it takes just to do the standard 220 volt one, right?
the level 2, that
Yeah, a
gives
lot of
you,
people
like,
saying
yeah.
that they charge you $10,000 to install this in people's houses, and I can't imagine
that, yeah.
what are they doing. So I would say, I would hope that you guys maybe did a little bit of research. I'm sorry that I didn't do it, because whenever I look at it, it's hard to get the answers. But how much is the piece? Because when I look at the appliance
I
that
have
you're
the number.
installing, it's not very expensive.
So the numbers run anywhere from, let's say, mid 300s up to 7, 8, 900, depending on the model, the brand, and what it does. So higher amperage, if you want a 50 amp unit, that'll give you, 50 miles to the hour. You're going to be in the higher end. If you want more smart things, an app that you can tell it when to charge, only charge at night because my electric cost is lower and all that stuff, you're going to pay a little more. If you want the base ones that, maybe they give you 30, 35 miles per hour of charging, you'll be down in the 400 range.
But is 300, 400 that much of a difference to save to 700 for the benefits? I mean, over years?
I haven't noticed it yet.
You got one?
No, we didn't get it yet. So it's hard to tell. Like, I haven't really made a decision yet on, do I want those extra features? Do I care to pay $300, $400 for those extra features, right? I'm tempted to go with the low end, right? Because I don't think those features are that useful, especially for us, because we're going to be opposite everyone else. Like, we'd actually rather charge during the day because we have solar on the house, and I'd rather charge then than charge at night when everybody else is trying to charge. And your utility bill is reversed for everyone who doesn't have solar. So that's kind of where I'm kind of stuck. And I was actually, going to talk to you about this, right? Which is why we're here. Because I'd rather pay on the low end. There are rebates from the state. That's another reason when we were buying this, there's a $250 rebate when you buy the charger, but only certain models, right? So then if you're going to go for the rebate, you're going to be stuck to certain models.
Probably the higher model.
Some of the higher models, one of the lower models is on the list, right? So,
you
there's
buy a higher model to
trade-off.
bring it down to the lower model cost.
Roughly speaking, yes. So that is kind of where we are, right? I don't think I need the highest model. I don't think I need to charge at 50 miles an hour when I could charge at 39 miles an hour. Like, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I don't think overnight, over 8 hours at night, it's fine. It's the same, right? So I'm tempted to say stay on the lower end, right, and save the money. But there's another option, and the other option is that you can just get basically a cable, like the charging cable, that will let you just take 40 amps straight from the wall and just charge directly into the car. You don't need a unit mounted on the house.
How do you connect it?
You need a plug. So you need a plug that looks like the one like behind your dryer, electric dryer. You need one of those outside somewhere that you can plug this cable into and then plug into your car, right? And now that still costs $200 to buy that cable, all right? But if I put one of those at my house and I put one of those at, like, say, the house in the Poconos, then I just take the cable with me when I move around, and I don't need a charger in both places.
Could you install that yourself?
I could install it myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, most people won't because it's electrical, and most people won't touch the box. But I've done enough things with Johnny, and I've done enough things myself that I would. But I'd probably still say, "Hey, Johnny, come over for lunch, and we'll do it anyway," right? But if we do that, we wind up paying, say, $200 for the cable and, $50 or whatever for the hardware on the ends to put in these extra plugs. And then you just take your plug with you. Right?
And how fast will that charge?
About 30 miles an hour.
Oh, it's on the lower side. I thought
It's
you
on the
were talking
lower
about
side.
higher
No, it's on the lower side.
Yeah, but think about it. It's 10 times the initial 110 one.
Yeah, it's 10 times
10 times more.
the free one.
And when
basically.
your car is full, how many miles can you go? Like 240?
330.
So you need to just plug it in for.
But remember, it's what you said. It's how you drive it.
It's how you drive it, but that goes for gas too, right?
Mhm, of course. No, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's huge with gas cars. And a lot of people don't realize that because gas is so easy to refuel.
Yeah.
But if you have a light foot on a car, you can go from 20 to 30 miles per gallon, right? So the only thing for the viewers that you need to know the capacity of your household electrical circuit, meaning your breaker box and what's your main. So we're in a urban town that's pretty old, and most of the houses in this town have a 100 amp feed. So imagine what he just said. Between 40 and 50 amps is taken up. Most people do not have that. There's an issue, and not in a lot of the suburban areas, especially if your house is new, you're more than likely going to have a 200 amp feed, but not necessarily if they filled up all your breakers. Now you're also going to have to find someone to either consolidate breakers into piggyback breakers, meaning one breaker spot that holds two, or have someone give you a sub panel just for that. So those are usually the cost incurred. But there's, going to the original example, if you have an older house in, let's say, this neighborhood, and it's only 100 amp feed, that line coming from the pole is only for 100 amp feed. They don't oversize it back in the day.
So let me ask you this,
So
right?
it becomes a little bit of a dilemma to upgrade.
So that 100 amps, right, is coming to your house. But at 2 a.m., right, how much of that 100 amps is your house using? Let's say virtually
So
nothing.
If you have central AC, and it's 100 degrees outside, like it has been the last few days here, you know, that's what, if anyone sees, we've been going through some brownouts here. So why is that? Because even if you don't have central AC, people put wall ACs that are pulling 11 amps a piece in most cases. So if you have three bedrooms, you know, so it is one of those things where people just have to know the fundamentals behind it. So they're not going to be blessed with a house like this one that they put 5 times the amount. I have 8 breaker boxes. 8.
We have one.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like no one has that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Do you
they're
have,
gonna
you have
to-
100 amps on each one?
No,
Or you have 200 amps on each one?
I have 300 to this house.
Oh, 300 total. To the
300
house.
total.
And then it's split
But
up.
they just divided it,
Okay.
right? And then they just added a bunch of other stuff individually just because they made their life easier, right? But all I'm saying is that usually regular house, like if you take my brother Niki's house, right? It's from the survey was from 1900, the one that I received.
The physical
The
land
physical survey.
Yeah.
The street was named something different, and
Yeah.
that feed is not that much older than that. It's like they ran that feed a long time ago. No one complains about it. They're not going to change it, right?
Right.
It's not the way that the system works. But if he wanted to upgrade his system, it would then incur all that cost.
Right.
So if we remove those people from the equation, you'd say most houses have a 200 amp feed. And as long as you don't have a large amount of electrical appliances, so let's say that you're in a neighborhood, usually that you find down south, where it's septic systems and only either propane or electric, they don't even have natural gas, usually their dryer will be electric and their stovetop, right?
So the houses in the Poconos are almost all electric.
There you go.
Stove, dryer, everything.
So you would be better to give an example of, you know, what kind of feed do these things have, right?
Yeah.
And then they also have other accessories, well pumps and all this
Yep.
other stuff that's all electrical.
Yep.
So usually you want to stay within 80% of your capacity. So if you have a 200 amp feed, take 80% of that. That's what your load's supposed to be if you put an ammeter on at full load.
At full load, which means everything's running.
Yep.
Right. Your
Everything's
dryer,
running.
your well pump, your septic thing, your lights, your air conditioners, everything's on. Right.
Right.
Which never happens. Right.
Right.
Right. So that's the thing. So I know people who have, we're getting a charger installed. Someone comes to give them a quote, an electrician comes to give them a quote, and you can hear anything from $2,000 to $10,000. Right. And sometimes it's, oh, your box is full.
Yep.
Right.
So they put a
I got to get a
either
sub panel
bigger
or a new
panel
box.
or sub panel.
But you mentioned earlier piggyback breakers, right? So if you don't, you could also swap them out for these little breakers that have 2 on 1, right? And fit it in. So instead of changing the box, maybe you just change 3 or 4 breakers and make space, put it in, right? So
And that depends on how versatile your electrician is and how much they want, with the housing boom and stuff like that, people are just trying to make the most for the time they're there.
Right.
They have to do all that kind of stuff.
right. If they're busy and they have lots of work, they can just say, oh, $8,000, right? If
Exactly.
you take it, you take it. If you don't take it, I got other work, right?
But I think my biggest thing was learning, and my original, I guess I was naive to think, I thought that the chargers had progressed a little more. And when I started to do the research and I saw how low the output is, I couldn't understand that. So I also don't understand, which I'm actually impressed, that the car holds the capability to
Yeah.
take a straight AC. That means that it's doing a lot of work at the car end.
So when I've read about it, the car is actually like the charging happens at the car. The charger
Right. It's
is just a
feeding.
connector.
Right.
Yeah, it's not doing anything.
Which is interesting, which is
Yeah.
cool. But I think it's just, I think in some of the other episodes, we alluded to some of the shortcomings, but we also need to just sort of accept what the process is, understand what that process is, and see what's the best way that the homeowner could then,
Right.
and I'm not saying anything except if I was presented with, and obviously my situation is a little different, but if I was presented with $300 or $700, like that's a no-brainer. I'm obviously going to go to whatever gives me the best bang for my mileage. If you told me $700 to $3,000, and that's a different story. I'm going to start to. But when you see that all of them are a few $100s apart, it's like what you said with the rebate. It gets you into a range, and you're fine, right? But I just think that if you look at it, you sort of just have to say, all right, how am I going to introduce this car into my lifestyle? not the other way around. It's not going to enhance my lifestyle. This is going to change my life. How do I introduce it to accomplish whatever goal, right? So I would ask you guys as a question. You got a Tesla. What was your goal? Right? So that we could say 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, have you accomplished that goal? And how much has it changed your day to day?
I think his goal is they want to be cool and say, hey, we got a Tesla.
That was not the goal. But I would have to bring Way into the stage.
We have 2 empty chairs.
She doesn't want to come over. Maybe we could do it. So ask that question next time when she's
No,
prepared.
but seriously, so because we want to make like a thing of this, right? A 3-month ownership. What did we learn? You know, you asked me to do certain things, and I'll hit them now real quick because I think this is sort of like anyone could go online and find out what this is.
So before you move on, let's just say on the charging subject. So we're saying in the charging world, a couple $100, it doesn't sound like it makes a difference. Get the features that you want, right?
Exactly.
The only other thing I have in the back of my mind is the flexibility, right? I put a charger at my house, great. I can't do anything when I go to, say, the Poconos for a week, right?
Why can't you do both?
I could do both, but then I need to buy the other cable. I think it's a different.
Is
I
it
have to
both
bu-
cables $200?
No, the charger on the wall is going to be $300 to $700. Comes with the cable, right? If I want to go plug in somewhere else to that straight line thing, I need a different cable.
So I have a quick question. So when you purchase this car, do they give
No.
you anything to charge it? Nothing.
Nothing.
Oh.
So they used to. They gave you the level 1 charger that you just plug in, and they stopped doing that. And the methodology or the theory that I read was no one uses it. They already have a thing installed at their house, and they never use it. So they just stopped giving it. It just so happens that Allison has the plug-in Prius, and the cable is just one of those cables. So we just have an adapter that comes with the car, and we just plug it in. So we're just sharing the cable with Allison.
So this is important. So her Prius came with one.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Right. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would say, you know, the good thing is, right, because they were sort of in a little bit of a fight to see which one. So the cables are compatible too. So that's important to know.
Yeah, so now it just made me think, why don't we just go onto Facebook Marketplace or whatever and just buy one of these cables from somebody?
All right. So a show of hands real quick. If they say that everyone in their house has one, who here has seen a house that has one just right from the get-go? I haven't.
Our
No, I
neigh-
think they're saying they're not using it.
well, they're not using it because they have one at their house. Because
Yeah.
they have
I
one
thought you
installed.
meant they have one installed and it comes with it.
They have it. No, because they have a charger installed on their house or in their garage. Right? Talking to the mic.
I heard.
So for example, our next door neighbors and our driveways are right next to each other have one on the side of the garage right next to our house. I could probably charge my car from their cable in my driveway if we had to, which is another reason why we're not rushing this, because I could just plug in next door.
But to answer my question, you guys know pretty much most of the people on your street, unlike me, who I don't even know my neighbor, right? So how many people on your street, which is a horseshoe, have this, you think?
2.
2 out of how many houses?
50.
All right. So that's a bad statement, right? And I would say that I visited my cousin. She just bought a new house in Hamilton. You know, her house didn't have it, blah, blah, blah. Like I rarely have and the only reason why I say it, because I get a lot of phone calls from people who just bought a house. Hey, John, welcome to my house. I didn't notice anything. There's this thing in the basement. What is it? Oh, you know, okay, it's this, it's that. No one's ever called me and say, what is this thing in my garage? It's an EV charger. You know, no one's ever.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that it's that prevalent.
Well, you got to imagine that every EV car that's been sold, there's one on that house.
Well, what I'm saying is for Allison to charge her car, she's just using a standard 110 plug.
Right, because she's a plug-in Prius has a small electric battery, right? It's a hybrid.
So to me, it makes a lot of sense that people are just going to have a 110 outlet that they could use.
Nobody does. Nobody does that.
Really?
It's too slow. They're impatient
slow.
like you. Yeah, everybody has a charger. So the reason Allison has the 110 is because her battery only does 30 miles by itself,
Okay.
right? So no matter how slow it is, it charges overnight.
Well, obviously, we must live in the wrong side of town because, you know, most of the people here do not have those in their house.
Well, you'd have to drive around and look for the EV cars and then see if they have one on their garage, and they
I'm
probably
pretty sure every car in Edison has one
and they probably do. Yeah, yeah.
for different reasons.
So we're back to. So we'll figure out which charger it is, and if you do any more homework, let me know if you see anything special about the different brands. But then we have to decide when we go to Pennsylvania, because we spend a lot of time there, does it make sense to just put in the 15 amp outlet there, or the 40 amp outlet there, and then buy that charger cable to take with us, right? So we have flexibility.
I could give you the answer right now, only because I know that the upmark on all these things, and go right to the local supply house, which I get wholesale. I could guarantee you that quarter costs me like $35.
Okay.
Almost. Let's put that to the test to see exactly what it is.
Okay.
The only thing I'm not aware of the prices. I know that what's the nomenclature for that? The number on the plug that goes in the car.
1540 NEMA
I forget.
1540.
That's the other side. The side that goes in, isn't it a J number? Anyway, that one's an odd one. So I can't imagine. Yeah, that one. That one I haven't ever purchased, but the other ones.
But I don't think you need to worry about that end. That's the end that goes in the car. You only need to worry about the plug end, which is the NEMA 15, whatever.
Right. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'll get that for you. But I think it's good to know, and more importantly, and obviously, Ray, like you said, well, you're impatient. You're not impatient. But what would be the expectation? So I would ask, if you didn't know and you got your car, did you think it was going to be 3 miles to an hour?
You knew that. You had to have known that already.
I think I knew it going in, but no one.
But the first time you heard it, does that sound low? It sounds like
it sounds ridiculous, right?
Wow.
Which is basically why no one does that. Everyone just puts the charger on their house, right? And even if it's, and what I've heard mostly is like in that 1,500 to 2,500 range. That's what people get charged to fix up their panel, put in the thing, do the breakers, whatever, and people just do it, right? I think it's too much, right? But for most people, they're not going to touch the electrical, and they're just going to pay someone to do it. But I know in my head that I'm going to get your assistance if I need it, and it's going to cost us less than $1,000 to put it all in. Right.
It'll be less if I supervise.
It'll be less if you supervise. Well, no, it'll be more because we're going to have to buy you lunch.
Good point.
So, all right. Done with that one. Next was extended warranty. So that's the question now, right? So when you buy a Tesla, they give you the option to buy an extended warranty. So
is it for the car or the battery? Because to me, the battery is all you need to worry about.
So the battery has an 8-year, 120,000 mile warranty on it. That's separate. The rest of the car has a 4-year, 50,000 mile warranty on it, right? And then you can buy an extended warranty, 2 more years, another 25,000. But you've got to buy it.
25,000 for the extended warranty.
25,000 miles.
Oh, sorry.
2 years or 25,000 miles.
So I'm going to tell you.
Time out. Just say so you have to buy it within the first 30 days or the first 1,000 miles on the car. You can't wait till the end.
So think about this though. When you have an electric car, there's not many components to it. How many things have you had to fix on your cars in the first 5+ years that you don't have now on an electric car?
Sorry, Gad, did you say the price for it? I didn't hear it.
It's $2,000 from Tesla. We got a quote from one of the other warranty companies. It's like $3,400, $3,500.
I don't see the benefit for an electric car.
No.
I still need the specifics. What's the deductible?
$100 per event.
$100 per event, and it's bumper to bumper.
It's the same. It's pretty much bumper to bumper. Yeah, it's the same as the original.
Those specifics are what get you.
Yeah,
and you just got to read that fine print. But usually, I'm just letting you know, I would balk at this big time. But that $2,000 is nothing for something that you're. See, my issue, and it's in this list, is that the more you read about them, you're knocking out 80% of your local stations that. Most of them won't even attempt to work on them, let alone if they know how to work on them.
Well, so if you buy the Tesla extended warranty, you got to take it to a Tesla approved or Tesla themselves.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
So usually people will decide not to do that because I know a good mechanic. I know this guy. I know the BMW place. I know the Mercedes place that we sent Ed to. And they make their living off people not wanting to do extended warranty and not wanting to pay.
The dealer price.
Right? So that's few and far between, even though they're becoming more prevalent, right? But there's so much quirkiness in the car, right? So usually I would interview someone before giving the advice to get an extended warranty. Is like, are you commuting every day? How long is your commute? Something very important. Does your car sit outside? Which is, they're realizing that this is becoming a big thing with electric cars because the more exposure to humidity and the environment, once the car is getting older, a lot of the biggest things that people, you hear about it in the news, you hear about it after the car's in an accident. Once that seal on the battery is broken, so I think everyone knows, and I'll use my phone as an example. So if you have a car, the wheels are here, front wheels and back wheels. That's the size of the battery in the Tesla. It's the whole bottom of the car. And that's why you get into issues that I have on my list on quirks about ownership, is that you got to know how to lift this car. You can't lift it like a regular car. It has different tires. The components that Tesla adds to tires, a foam inside that minimizes noise and it's better rolling, less rolling resistance.
That's the next topic.
Right. So what I'm getting to is that because you're eliminating the little benefits of me going out and buying a 10-year-old car, and I know exactly how to take care of it. I know who, if I don't want to do it, who to take it to. Now you've minimized that. So if I was a betting man for 25, like do the math, 25,000 miles at $2,000.
Yeah, but explain to me, what are you going to get out of that? What's going to go wrong?
So in my mind, what's going to go wrong is the camera, all this stuff, like everything's electronic and everything's motorized, right? When I walk away from the car, the windows go up, the mirrors fold in, the thing shuts itself down. There's a charging mechanism that like blinks lights. There's a little button to open the charger. It opens itself, it closes itself. The trunk and the frunk, both, like you press a button, they open, you press a button, they close. Like, so there's mechanics everywhere. And like my history of cars has always been like, it's all those things that break. Like sometimes I'd rather have crank windows because window motors always break, right?
Not sometimes.
Antenna motors break, like all that stuff. So now I think I got less moving parts like in the engine, but I got all these little things around the car that could potentially go wrong. And I imagine when a camera on the right side of a Tesla goes bad, it's not $20 to fix it.
No.
So what I read was that the average charge of fixing a repair job on like just average event was a little over $800, right? So you need 3 of those to get your $2,000 back, or one big one. Maybe that's the average, and on the high side of that, it's much higher, right? So,
and another thing too, a lot of people forget there is a very large gearbox associated with your electric motors. This is not purely a motor attached to the wheels. You know, there are mechanical aspects to it, and you know, I just think that if it was something that had a better established care system, that you didn't have to go to the dealer, you would take those risks, right? But also, you're already making a conscious decision that you're not going to use this as a test and do like a 3-year and trade it in. At least that's what I'm getting from you. Because that's another thing I usually ask people. How long are you planning on owning this car? With that initial investment, right? I'm assuming you guys are going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off, like you do with every other car. So I would give you that advice, because the number to me is well below the average. I've talked to a bunch of people. Another friend of mine just bought a Jeep Wrangler. They wanted $4,200 for the extended, and it had, depending on what was broken. So engine and drivetrain was somewhere around $100, and everything else was like around $500.
what, 500
Deductible.
deductible,
right? Because I look at both things, right? After 2 deductibles, you're like more than half in. What's the point, right? But you guys would also have to do the research and say, this particular model I bought, what are the nuances and they already been out. All the models have been out for more than 5 years, right? They don't have any, so people already know, right? And then the other oddity that's different, it's also on the list, is that these cars receive updates via
Wi-Fi, right?
Wherever he's sending it, right, from outer space or whatever. You know, knowing him, who knows who's sending the updates. And a lot of people have been complaining about certain quirks of the car, and they send an update and it makes it worse, right? So if you're under warranty, that's why I asked what's included. Are those over the air all included? So, you know, it almost shields you from whatever they might try to fix that makes it worse.
Yep.
Right. And the other main one is, which you have to think about, this is not a hybrid. If you plug this thing in one day and it does not charge, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Not a lot of people are going to be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's why we call it.
I would say it's well worth it at that number. I think he's being smart to keep it at a reasonable, in my mind, number. But I'm like Gary. Initially, for other people, you know that's the moneymaker on most things.
Yeah.
You know, warranties on appliances, that's a moneymaker.
Yeah, and I would never. Well, I never had the option to buy them. I never really thought about it because I never bought new cars, right? But when we bought the Prius, whenever that was, 13 years ago, we did get an extended warranty on that because same reason, right? I got this hybrid thing. It's got a motor and an engine and all the electronics and everything. And was just like, look, just get it. And we found someone who'd sell it for like $800,
So let's talk about that.
somewhere else.
I gotta get in front of the microphone here.
Yes.
You've had that Tesla, or sorry, you've had the Prius for 10 years?
No, so we actually don't have the Prius anymore. We had it for 11 years.
You have a different one now.
We have a different.
In those 11 years, did you ever need your warranty?
No.
That doesn't mean you'll never need it for this,
Correct. So we never needed it. But what we learned, here's a good tidbit, right? Which I had no idea. You go to the dealer, you're buying a car. Let's say you're buying a new car, and they offer you to sell you the extended warranty, right? And it's $3,000 or $4,000. You don't have to buy it from them. Like you can go buy it from another.
Right.
Like this was a
Shop
Toyota,
around.
right? I can go shop at another Toyota dealer. Like I had no idea that you could do
Yes.
that, right? So we found a guy online, someone was talking about a guy online, and then I got hold of him. He was in Boston, and he was selling them for $700, right? And so I read to make sure it wasn't a scam, and then I just bought it. We got it, and it's official, and it just works. So we only paid $700, and we never used it.
So think about it. I mean, think of inflation and everything, and the price of this
Right,
car
and that was
compared to
13 years ago.
13
Right.
years ago.
Right.
I see it as an insurance.
Correct.
Also, to give you guys that warm, fuzzy feeling, hey, I know I'm putting myself out there because I'm trying to be green and I'm trying to do something different. At least that gives you a little bit of peace of mind. But, I think it's also important for you to educate yourself on what should I anticipate, right? Remind me again which model you have.
Why?
Why, right? So do the research on the why compared to the 3, compared to this, which you probably did when you decided which one to buy compared. And it brings you closer to the comfort level of why I spent this money, especially if it's bumper to bumper.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the last thing was the run flat tires. So I know it's not just a Tesla thing. Other cars have them.
Is it the same run flat as other run flat, or is it there's unique?
I don't know.
No,
So that's what we're going to
So
talk to
the
John about.
ironic thing is not a run flat. It's just a design of and not all of them have it, but the point is that they add this extra foam inside of it. It lowers the. I think you've heard a car riding by and the tires actually make noise. So this thing mitigates that, and also it gives you less rolling resistance, right? Because all of these are built like that. So if you look at especially the original Priuses, you even see the Honda Insight, which is not a very popular car, because they made it so ugly so that it goes through the air much better than a regular car. They put those little flares, they put those funny hubcaps. It just looked horrible in my opinion. But they're looking so that this car is aerodynamic and it rolls. So the only caveat with that is that you can't take that just anyone to fix the tire if you get a flat. The ironic thing too, because I don't know why he would do that, but his justification is that you only use the spare tire and all the other associated accessories 15% of the time. And then most of them end up in the landfill completely unused.
Never used. Right.
Right? But,
Wait,
I'm a little comical.
But finish that. Because you only use it 15% of the time, Tesla decided to not give you a spare.
So they do not have spares or accessories to lift the car, right? So when you get a flat, they expect you to call the 24-hour roadside assistance, which, if I'm not mistaken, is included for free.
For how long?
Yes.
I was going to ask that because that I couldn't really. Is it for the life of the car or? Okay, so
You never have to change a tire because they'll do it for you for free.
We're going to check.
Yeah, so my and
I have to
always
believe
pick-
also they're super expensive.
But
'cause
wait, I have to pick the worst scenario. I was thinking about this after doing the research, and I'm crossing the George Washington Bridge yesterday with 19 lanes and chaos during this monsoon. And I'm like, I get a flat here, and I'm calling who? And this guy's going to take how long to get to me?
Yeah.
Right? So I just think of those things because that's just the way I am. But at least they provide that, right? So someone has to give that.
So
some
let's just
type
back
of-
up. Is it still a run flat?
No,
No, it's
So if
not.
you get
So
a
it's not
flat
a run-
tire, you
It's a
can't
flat.
run.
It's a flat.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a flat like every other.
Okay.
It's just that, like, if, for instance, Jennifer comes home, she has a Tesla, and she said, "Babe, I got a flat. Go fix it." You just
can't.
don't plug it like a regular tire, right? That's number one. Two, I'm just a little comical with certain things like, hey, why put blinkers? You only use that, 1% of the time.
Most people don't use it at all.
Why put doors in the back? Who's ever in the back seat in a 2-door car? When do you get these numbers from? It makes no sense, right? I don't like it. It's almost like they rationalize it for whatever reason they didn't want to put it.
But and not that I'm defending it in totality, but there are other cars that don't have spares, right? Like your brother's minivan doesn't have a spare, right?
He has run flats.
Yes, but could I put run flats on a Tesla if I wanted?
You can.
We could, right?
You could.
So if we ever change them, we could do that.
Good
right?
luck with that.
Yeah. Why? The cost?
Expensive.
Yeah, I had those on my Mini, and it was awful.
The cost, you mean?
The cost was very high because we're talking. I want to say I was paying roughly $250
Per tire.
per tire, and this was 10 years ago. And
And they're mostly
I kept hitting these huge
this big.
potholes, and then it would get flat. I mean, you can still ride on it, but you still got to you can
can
try
run on
to
it.
go get it. Yeah, so you got to go get a new tire, and I did 3 tires within a year. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Is that common though? Did they pop? Did they?
So what
It's so
happened?
low to the ground.
Yeah, what happens is he's talking about run flats that are also low profile.
Yeah. They're
Right.
They were awful.
We're not going to go into the class on tires, but I think everyone understands. You read this number on numbers and letters on your tires, and the higher up in the alphabet, the more they are. So if you have Z-rated tires, get ready to pay. Right.
but they last longer.
They last longer, and if they're a normal tire, the Z-rated tire is actually the thickness of the top of it is the same as the side, whereas everyone else knows on a regular tire, the sidewall is very thin, right? Just gives you more rigidity when you're in high performance. It's better. But it's just, I believe, so that people don't think we're against anything, it's just understanding your car and what's the cost of ownership, right? So a guy at work, he has a X5, and the dealer was charging him close to $500 for one run flat tire on that car. Now, is that exorbitant? Probably. But regardless, people need to know that it's a lot more than a regular tire.
Yep.
Simple as that. And you also need certain equipment that other places don't have. And then you start to talk to other people, and they're like, they just won't even deal with you. They'll be like, just go to the dealer.
So then let's back it out, right? Because I said run flat, and it's not really that. It's just these foam-filled tires that we have. So
And
what's,
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it's only in the center, right? So it depends where you get your flat.
right?
So
I
on
think
and
you
so
can.
forth.
I think we watched a YouTube video where you can plug it, and maybe it depends on where that plug is going to
exactly.
be. Right.
And then it's also depending on the model, right? That's why this is just general knowledge on saying, hey, you get this car, do all the research, understand what you have. More importantly, and I'm just telling you, Jennifer's going to call me when she gets a flat regardless, right? So it's just you as the owner to say, all right, when it happens and who it is it your daughter? Is it this person? Is that person? Who's going to go out? So make sure the person has the 1-800 number, and make sure you know that depending where you're at, it could probably be a long time, right? And I'm assuming the car itself has like an OnStar type of a button that calls it for you.
I don't know. Way's gonna have to check. We keep looking over there off the camera because Way's sitting over there.
Okay, so it's on an app, she's saying. So
It's definitely on your
the
phone,
point
yeah.
is not because money is, how do you say? Some people have it, some people don't. Some people are cheap, some people aren't. So they might see it differently. It's just, do you qualify it as an inconvenience? And if you do, if you're already, I'm sorry to say this, but if you're used to just sitting in the parking lot charging your car, you probably just sit there and wait for the guy to come fix your tire.
Well,
I zoom by you after I filled up and changed my own tire.
that'll be another discussion because we have yet to do that, right? To
Right.
go and actually charge on a long trip somewhere, right?
Right.
So,
We were driving to Portugal, right?
well, it's right. so the funny thing is that yesterday we had to drive out to Pennsylvania to the Poconos and spend the morning, and then we had to drive to Way's brother's in Westchester, which is, so it's 2.5 hours the first trip, and then 2.5 hours to Westchester from the Poconos, and then come home last night another 2 and a half, 2 hours, right?
Miles are more important.
Huh?
How many miles was it?
So it was just about 320-ish miles to do the whole thing, right? So it was like just enough. We could do the whole trip without charging the car, right? I was like, hey, this is perfect, right? But we haven't decided on the warranty yet, and we would blow the 1,000 miles, so we took the Camry. We took the Camry instead.
I love it. I love it.
So, but the funny thing is, going from Pennsylvania to Westchester, we got stuck in 19 lanes of disastrous traffic on the GW I don't, because you weren't actually there yesterday, right?
I was there on Friday.
You were there Friday. This was yesterday, and there was all those storms going through here.
No. One went through Connecticut. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the worst of the worst yesterday. It took us an hour to go over the GW, right, over the bridge. So, yeah, we would have been sitting there in that
And
car.
what's that called?
Traffic.
There's a term. No, what the owners and what's a term in the EV industry? People have to know. That's called range anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
So, and you know, when they interview people and they say, no, I'll never get one because I would just be so like my mom. I've told my mom, you gotta be careful. My mom would like, no. I'm not leaving. The house. Don't even give me the keys. She'd be like, no. You know, like people get anxious and I'd be the opposite. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm taking this thing. I'm gonna see how I can like.
Well,
baby
exactly.
this
I
thing.
wanted to take
Yeah.
it, but we didn't make this decision yet, so I didn't want to blow it away. It was already at 700 miles and change, right? So we would have.
Yeah, I mean, that's only my 2 cents, but I think that really the best part of this conversation is that we have bona fide people who are going to pay attention, and you're obligated to jot it down so that we do a 3 month, 6 month, you know, give people day in the life, right?
Yep.
Because everyone knows what a regular car is.
Yeah, you just buy it and drive it.
Yeah, that's
right?
it.
You don't think about it. Yeah. So it's it is definitely a learning experience.
Thank you guys for being the guinea pigs.
Yeah, we are. We're there.
You're the first, right?
We're the first that we know of. Well, no, we have a few friends who have EVs, right? So Sagar's had an EV for 5. He's had a Tesla Model 3 for 5 years. He got it in 2018, and I called him yesterday to ask him these questions too. No problems. Like he hasn't done anything to that car. And he's about 80,000 miles at this point. And if it wasn't for COVID, he'd be a lot higher, but he's because of the commuting thing is out now. So, but what we're seeing is that now that we're home all the time, we drive way more than we used to drive. Like I would just drive 5 miles or whatever to the ferry, then go to work, and then come home, drive 5 miles home. Right now we're going all over the place all day long. Right, so we are driving a lot more. So theoretically, this will be better. Right, charge it off the solar. It's free. Can just keep going. Right, so we'll see how that works out. But I talked to him. He has had no problems with it. He loves it. We have. I just found out my cousins have 3. They have a Prius and 2 EVs. The ones out in Arizona. Neither Tesla though. They're 2 different brands, which I can't remember which ones they are. One's a Leaf, and one's something else I never heard of. My buddy in Iceland has had a Leaf and traded it in for something else, which I don't know what it is. Oh, it's a Tesla. It's a good thing she's there to answer all these questions, right? So, Amit they have a Leaf, right? Or they had a Leaf. So I think people have them. Just, you know, and I haven't heard any disaster stories yet, right? So I'm sure they have a few. Oh yeah, Max. We just ran into Max the other day, and he's got a what a VW? Yeah, it's a Volkswagen. And he loves it. So people love them. From what I hear so far, people love them, right? So whether they went through all the headaches in the beginning of how do I charge it and what do I do, like that little bit of learning curve, I'm sure everybody went through the anxieties. But it seems like after the fact, they love them. So that's where we are. We'll let you know. All right. So that's it for EVs. How are we doing on time? 7:22. We ready to? We need doing more, Stevie, or are we good for the day?
What about the all incoming questions?
Okay. And did you put everybody on hold? Right, all the callers are pushed off for today.
It's like when you go look for your high beams. Now they took that out. You only use that 1% of the time. You don't need those. But it's dark out. Nah, don't worry about that.
We have auto high beams. They just go on and off. I love it.
Oh, they're auto.
They're auto. Yeah.
So but it's only 1% of the time. Why didn't they just get rid of them?
I use mine
The
all
opposite.
the time.
It's the opposite.
I
You
wanna make sure
should use
people
them all
see
the
me.
time
So he's forcing you
to be safe.
to blind the other driver?
No, it goes off. It goes off when there's other lights. Doesn't work. So
GM invented the auto.
yeah.
Long time.
We've had it on some rental cars and stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to keep going, the other thing we were going to talk about today was something that you guys are running into, Johnny and Wei. The mortgaging and the different types of mortgages on buying homes, right? So what we're finding because of this purchase that you guys are helping out with right now is a loan that none of us have really ever heard of, and we just wanted to say, hey, there's all these different ways that you can buy houses or that you can get mortgages to buy property, and we just go through them real quick and talk about all the
If you want, I could give an introduction on what we're doing and then just open it up to a specific scenario, if anyone very quickly can say, I could see those specifics, but I would do it this way. Right?
Okay.
That's really the only dilemma we're sort of facing for this week, because we got to make the decision quickly. But to everyone listening, especially this is found in a lot of areas, especially urban areas, and what we're dealing with is a purchaser who for many years owned the house and became delinquent. It was a FHA that was then, because of mortgage insurance, taken over by HUD.
So hold on. So FHA is
The federal program.
Federal
to-
Housing Administration,
Right.
right? So
So-
what I want to make sure is clear is it doesn't mean first home buyers,
No,
blah,
no,
blah,
no,
blah. That's
no.
what everybody
It's-
thinks.
no.
It's not that.
Federal Housing Authority, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, right? So apologize if we get the acronyms wrong, but it's a government program, usually first-time buyers or some type of distress buying in urban or distressed communities. And obviously, if you search it online, they usually have much lower down payment, so on and so forth. But when you don't pay it, because you were paying mortgage insurance and associated with it until you became less than 80%, they gobble up the house when you're done. And then there's a certain program that's afforded to you for the person who's trying to rehab that home if it's in bad shape. And that's an extension to that FHA loan, which is called a 203K. And we're learning through that process now. And what that gives them the ability to do is there's two options to it. There's option one would be maximum $35,000 they'll give you above the loan, and you would rehab it if it needed minor things, and that's just rolled over into the loan, and you don't need a consultant to do that.
You mean the 35K? So let's back up. So you're buying this home. The home was distressed. There's something wrong with it. No one's probably living in it anymore. And the HUD, Housing and Urban Development Authority or whatever it is, took it over, and now they're selling it on the market, right?
And then
This is the house you're buying?
no, it's a friend of mine is. And Way would be able to say more specifically, but what you're doing is you get your realtor, and your realtor has to be approved to participate in this process, and they give you a certain amount of time frame to place a bid on this house. So you place your bid, everyone places it before the date.
Sealed bids, right?
Right, sealed bids. And once they open up those bids, they choose who it is, and you have a certain amount of time to decide how are you going to take care of this house and get it off their hands, right? So right now we're going through, like I said, this 203K process, and what's happening is I'm trying to do the math on how much can we sort of take into consideration the high interest rates that we're going to now. So unfortunately, we came back with a interest rate of 8.7.
Wow.
So let me back up real quick on the 203 just to explain how it works and tell me if I'm wrong on any of this. So making up numbers, say the house is a beat up house and it should be worth 400, but we're only going to sell it for 250.
Correct.
Right. Then you have somebody come in and look at it and give you an estimate to bring this house up to spec and make it nice. It's going to take another 200, right? So that's 400. So they're willing to give you the whole 400 or 450, right? In this 203K loan program up into a 30-year loan, like a regular loan.
Correct.
And that includes dollars to pay for all the work.
Correct.
Right. Which most people don't get
Correct.
under
But there's
normal
a little
mortgages.
there's a little thing. So basically, you have to go through a consultant that then brings the people in that, in their estimation, gives you a fair bid on how much it costs. And then they do a reappraisal, and the house has to appraise over that construction cost, or else obviously they're not going to give it to you.
Right, but under normal conditions, if you got a regular mortgage, you'd have to get a mortgage for the 250 because it's only worth 250 in the condition it's in, and then you'd have to pay cash out of
Correct.
your pocket somehow to spend
Correct.
200K to fix it all up. Right, this way, right, you get to mortgage the whole thing and have a monthly payment instead of needing 200,000 in cash.
Correct. Right. So the key with that is that there's a little bit of a be careful what you wish for, and that's where my mind is stuck. And I just needed to sort of brainstorm it, is because usually in the urban area, the person does not have a lot of money to buy the house, right? So unfortunately, you're putting yourself into a boat where the appraisal is dictating how much the house is technically worth to the bank, but there's still two problems. You need to your finances have to be able to sustain the final product, which
The
is
monthly
the
monthly
400
payment at 400
on the 400, not the 250 that you won the bid on. Number one, and number two, you have to be able to float that during the time that the construction happens. You understand?
You mean if you're not living in it yet, you're living somewhere else, paying
Yeah.
rent, and you haven't finished the thing, and you've got
to
to
float it,
cover
right?
that space. Yeah.
So my thing was really just having a conversation, and this is a little bit speculative or a lot speculative, but I think the more you talk to people, you usually gain some type of consensus. Does everyone believe that interest rates will, in the very near future, go down, right? But if the interest rates stay the same or go up, that person is floating this 8.7 for a very long period without the ability to refinance.
Correct.
Right. So that's really the dilemma that I'm saying. It's like, so, some people say, nope, we're almost 100% sure that the interest rates are going to go down because certain things are already curtailing. So I don't have a crystal ball. So
Nobody
it's like
does.
sort of, can people just use either articles they've been listening to or just a gut feeling? I'm a gut feeling type of person, right? So if other people can say, no, I think this is going to happen, it gives you a little bit of insight on what someone could think is going to happen.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's really hard. Nobody knows, right? So everything I read says that in the next 6 to 12 months, they think rates are either going to continue to stay flat or start to come down a little bit if the Fed decides to start lowering rates. But anything can happen, right? A war, another COVID, or this or that. Like no one knows, right? So you got to assume you're going to float that 8% for a long time, right? There's no
8.7.
8.7, right?
Hurts me just saying it.
Yeah.
That's more than.
But remember, when your parents bought that house in Piscataway, my parents bought the house in Piscataway, it was 15%. Right?
But we didn't live through that.
But we're talking about my dad.
Yeah, I know. I know.
This is my dad. Yeah, I want that. It doesn't matter how much it costs. I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't care.
So,
Hustler.
so it's a scenario that we'd never heard about, this whole 203K thing, right?
Yep.
And it definitely sounds like you said, certain scenarios it could be really great because you don't have to lay out all the cash, but you are committing to that payment for a long, long time,
Yep.
right? So, I mean, traditionally we've used just regular 30-year loans or maybe a 15-year loan. Some people I know have used because they like the lower rate, but you're committing to a larger payment. There's also straight up FHA loans, right? That just give you that lower down payment and that kind of thing. You can do ARM, adjustable rate loans.
What
right?
are those going for now? Do you know? Have you looked at those?
No.
No.
I mean, my only other option, which I didn't flow through it completely, I was almost waiting for now just to throw it out. I was thinking, is there any math on a very aggressive ARM that then you could sort of throw cash at it and then refinance or use a home improvement loan to get the number at a better number? But it always ends when you do that second part, you're back at
The
eight.
crystal ball place. Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah. So it's like, it was one of those things where it's like, I get it, I understand it, and the one thing that's bothering me is beyond everyone's control. The 8.7 is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's really just the finances of the person, and if they're able to float.
You got to be able to float the worst case, right? The worst case is you're going to have that for 30 years, right? If something better comes along, great, right? But you can't bank on it's going to go down and I'll refinance. I can deal with this for 2 years and then I won't be able to pay for it anymore. But by then it'll fix itself, right? That's I wouldn't go that way. That's what everybody did in 06 and 07, and that's why the
But
housing market crashed. in
For
08.
anyone interested in this, I'll give one more example and specifics of something. They do not give you that money right from the get-go. So they'll close on your loan, and then what it appraises on and what the contractor who is going to do the rehab on it, they give that person monies only when each phase of the property is done. It's important so you know that you're not going to get a lump check. They're not going to give you $100,000 just to use at your discretion. And there's also two sections depending on your bank that you're getting your loan from. Some will only do a 203K loan with the contractor putting the money up front, and once he finishes your kitchen, then he gets his money. He literally has to float the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And there's a network of people who are used to it, right? But most contractors won't do that. They want 20, 30% so that they can cover
Buy all
themselves,
their
right?
yep.
That's number one. Two, I personally did a bridge loan for construction to go into a conventional. They call it a bridge loan because you're approved for the total of the house right from the get-go, and you're guaranteed a 30-year conventional after it's done. So it's the opposite. But the biggest benefit to the 203K is that it's never interest only, whereas a bridge loan, your construction part of the loan is interest only.
Why is that negative? I like interest only.
I'm just telling you the difference. For me, if you're building a large house that takes you, 13 months of payment at interest only, that might bother people.
Yeah. It took me a while, but I got over it. Right. I like interest only. I think it's a good way to do mortgages and stuff like that. So it's something else we could talk about one day.
But I think that if you could expand on that, I'm not saying it's bad or good. It just, to me, it was one of those things where it was, in my eyes, it was just the construction company realizes they're doing you a little bit of a favor. There's nothing built on this. So the one that I was doing was empty land, right?
This is what, the Georgia?
No, the waterfront one.
You never
right?
actually
so it was
went.
empty, right?
Right.
It was empty. So they're putting all this money out. There's nothing there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they're taking a risk. So they want to cover their risk by saying, hey, this is interest only. So,
Yep.
we're lending you this, but you're
Yeah.
not making any money. So it's really for the listener to understand, hey, why didn't you just do that? Well, there's a difference, right? So also how you deal with the conventional with the bridge before it, you need to pay 20% down. Whereas the FHA is giving you 3.5. So
Right.
it's important for people to know that.
Right. So there's a lot there. And I will say the reason that I don't shy away from interest only is because you're paying the interest anyway in your mortgage payment, right? You're also paying part of your principal in that mortgage payment. So when you do interest only, you're just not taking money out of your bank account and putting it in your house. You're just leaving it in your bank account, and you can use it and do something else.
Right.
So there's probably a better way to explain it, right? But it basically means I'm just gonna pay that little bit of interest, and it's a much smaller payment than I would normally have to pay. So in this case, where you're saying, hey, I got to float this loan that's 8.7, well, a third
It
of
would have
that,
made your life easier those first months.
a third of that payment, and say that payment is $2,000 a month or whatever it is, a third of that is not to the bank, it's to yourself, but you
Right.
can't get the money anymore because it's stuck in the house, right? So maybe that payment could only be $1,200 a month if it was interest only, right? So that's how I look at it. And I don't know if you can do interest only on the 203Ks, but you should look at that.
You cannot.
Okay. So much for that. Okay. Gary,
Yes.
you were quiet.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Anything else on that? It's
No,
it's
I
complicated.
think
There'll be more to
that
come.
It's going to be very much like the Tesla story. 3 months from now, we'll do an update on what we learned. Did we move forward? When we did, what did we learn? Which contractor had to throw out a window? All that kind of stuff. We'll
Yep.
talk about it in 3 months.
Okay.
Throw them out the window.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. I think that's it for today. So that's a wrap. Let's get out of here. Bye, everybody.
Turn the AC on.